Please welcome to the podium Dr. Annie Bukacek.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction. At a time where telling the truth is considered a threat to national security, we're very blessed to have a pastor who tells us the truth. We are blessed beyond measure. So I'm going to read this so that I make sure I don't give excessive commentary. So I'm going to talk about death certificates today. The decision for unprecedented government-mandated lockdowns has been based on the alleged death rate of COVID-19. Is this death rate based on truth? I posted the following question on Facebook yesterday. This is the question. Know anybody personally with baseline good health who has been hospitalized for COVID-19 alone or allegedly died from COVID-19? That was my question. I asked the question this way because if you know someone personally, you may know their baseline health status and some details of the case. And being tested positive for COVID-19 does not mean you have the disease. Even asking the question this specifically, I still got some people saying their spouse knows a friend who's of a nephew in New York. And some who answered yes but didn't give the details, even though I asked them, could you please submit some more details? I got over 350 comments and received dozens of no answers, if not scores. Last I counted, there were 3 or 4 who answered yes and said their case fit the criteria, and they gave me some details. But even those 3 or 4, giving them the benefit of the doubt that they were answering honestly to the best of their knowledge, does that mean the person they described was actually stricken with COVID-19? Inquiring minds want to know, are the reported deaths from COVID-19 truly deaths from COVID-19? To address this question, we need to discuss death certificates, since death certificates are the basic source of information about mortality. The discussion of death certificates is not a fun one. We have all grieved so many losses in our lifetimes. Still, we need to talk about it because they are the basis of the so-called death rate of COVID-19. History-changing decisions are being made due to these figures, despite the fact that they are flat out wrong, based on data that is insufficient and often inaccurate. Few people know how much individual power and leeway is given to the physician, coroner, or medical examiner signing the death certificate. How do I know this? I've been filling out death certificates for over 30 years. More often than we want to admit, we don't know with certainty the cause of death when we fill out death certificates. That is just life. We are doctors, not God. Autopsies are rarely performed, and even when an autopsy is done, the actual cause of death is not always clear. Physicians make their best guesstimate and fill out the form. Then that listed cause of death, whatever we list, is entered into a vital records data bank to use for statistical analysis, which then gives out inaccurate numbers, as you can imagine. Those inaccurate numbers then become accepted as factual information, even though much of it is false. So, even before we heard of COVID-19, death certificates were based on assumptions and educated guesses that go unquestioned. When it comes to COVID-19, there is the additional data skewer that is, get this, there is no universal definition of COVID-19 death. The Center for Disease Control, updated from yesterday, April 4th, still states that mortality, quote-unquote, data includes both confirmed and presumptive positive cases of COVID-19. That's from their website. Translation, the CDC counts both true COVID-19 cases and speculative guesses of COVID-19 the same. They call it death by COVID-19. They automatically overestimate the real death numbers by their own admission. Prior to COVID-19, people were more likely to get an accurate cause of death written on their death certificate if they died in the hospital. Why more accurate when a patient dies in the hospital? Because hospital staff has physical exam findings, labs, radiologic studies, etc., to make a good, educated guess. It is estimated that 60% of people die in the hospital. But even those in hospital deaths, the cause of death is not always clear, especially in someone with multiple health conditions, each of which could cause the death. Clear-cut causes of death might include traumatic brain injury, say from a car accident, intractable seizures or asthma, sepsis from overwhelming infection, respiratory arrest from a COPD exacerbation, ruptured aneurysm, metastatic cancer, massive acute heart attack, stroke, or pulmonary embolism. I will talk more in a little bit about why inaccuracy in the cause of death has declined for hospital deaths with the introduction of COVID-19 testing. There are also unclear causes of death in ambulances. That's a reality. An example would be someone with multiple deadly conditions who gets short of breath and dies before evaluation can be done. Was it the patient's underlying lung disease or heart disease that caused the shortness of breath, that caused them to call the ambulance? Or was there a concomitant pneumonia or other problem? We don't know because the patient died before the incident could be evaluated. So an estimated 60% of people die in the hospital. As to the other 40%, it is estimated about 20% of people die at home and 20% in nursing homes in this country. The true cause of death in these situations usually remains unknown. The death certificate is filled out with the best educated guess. Unknown causes of death include elderly people or younger people with known heart disease who die peacefully in their sleep. It is not acceptable to list old age as a cause of death, even though that may be more accurate than the cause of death we often list on the death certificate.
Donald Trump has threatened to pull funding from the WHO after their repeated international displays of incompetence. It's not hard to understand why Donald Trump wants to do this. The United States is the largest financial contributor to the globalist body. They're also paying the highest human cost for the WHO blunder team.
The worst trade deal ever made.
The leader of the WHO, Dr. Tedros, who isn't even a medical doctor, just to be clear, didn't take well to this threat to his racket. It triggered his self-inflicted PTSD from back when he was running a communist Ethiopian regime that shot its own people in the streets. According to the WHO director himself here, and don't mind the pun, America had better cough up the cash that he wants, because if they don't, they are going to die.
If you don't want many more body bags, then you refrain from politicizing it.
This is who we are working with here. Global bodies always find the most villainous people to work for them. They're never just normal folks who manage to get the top jobs at these institutions. If they can't keep running the same unaccountable racket with a rock star lifestyle of inflated salaries, international travel, and global influence, they'll literally threaten you with death. To make matters worse, he's demanding that we even quit criticizing him.
My short message is, please quarantine politicizing COVID.
Yes, you heard that right. Tedros cuddles up to Xi Jinping, condemning America for closing their borders to the virus-stricken country, denying human-to-human transmission even in January, to save face for his daddy Xi Jinping, denying the existence of Taiwan even, the international example of combating COVID and Chinese imperialism.
Would the WHO consider Taiwan's membership? Hello?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I couldn't hear your question.
Okay, yeah. Let me repeat the question.
No, that's okay. Let's move to another one then.
Freedom at midnight. As the lockdown was lifted, Wuhan put on a light show and the people breathed after 11 weeks in which none was allowed to leave the city and many were confined to their homes.
The governor's orders shutting down non-essential businesses and telling people to remain in their homes may seem like martial law, but experts tell us it's not even close.
Barton Dieters explains.
If you spent any time online, you've seen the rumors about whether martial law is coming. But is that something that could actually happen here? A violation of the governor's order is a misdemeanor that would be enforced by local and state officials. Government officials have been clear in their denial that martial law, where the military takes control of civilian government, is on the horizon.
I am not calling for martial law. That is a rumor, and that is false.
While making her declaration calling for non-essential businesses to close and for people to stay home, Governor Gretchen Whitmer took the subject on directly.
And it is dangerous for people to foment fear and put bad information.
This was echoed at the federal level Monday by the U.S. Secretary of Defense.
To be clear, this is not a move toward martial law, as some have erroneously claimed.
But for now, let's look at two of those numbers, overdoses and suicides, both, by the way, disproportionately kill young people. Let's say the IHME death projections are too low for the sake of argument, and this would be the first time that's happened. But again, just for the sake of this exercise, let's assume the real number is twice as big. It's 120,000. That's how many Americans will die in this outbreak. If that's true, that would still be around as many people as die from overdoses and suicides, both of which our leaders essentially ignore.